think there is symbolic value in this. It's taken the EU a really long time to get to this point. There's been a lot of negotiations behind closed doors, a lot of conversations directly with Hungary through all sorts of different forums. And really, this is the end of the road. And I think the symbolic power here is the EU saying, here's a bit of tooth to our bite. They're saying, it's not enough just to be a member. You have to share our values and our principles. And there's been a very strong focus on the countries being admitted into the EU and all the checks and balances that go on in that process. But once you're in, it's been very difficult to hold countries to account. And obviously, as you say, the actual practical processes there still create many obstacles. But I think this is the EU standing up together and saying, enough is enough.
Except that when the leaders of Hungary and Poland play to their domestic audience, I mean, arguably this could actually strengthen them domestically, because as much as they seem to dislike the EU, they quite like the funds that they get, because both countries are net beneficiaries. And so ultimately, can the EU do anything even when it comes to that? Because that seems to be the only language, perhaps, that these countries would understand. If you're in the club, these are our values, and that's how you get our money. But can the EU even do that?
It's a very difficult line for the EU to tread, and they are very conscious about the citizens in these countries, who they do view separately to the leaders and their sort of gregarious, rather arrogant behaviour towards them. They are very concerned that if they push too far, the citizens of the countries will turn against the EU as well. And of course, Orbán, as we have seen in many other countries, has been playing a very effective game of positioning himself as a strong man against the EU, or even a victim against the EU. And these dual narratives have been very successful, as you say, at home. But the people within these countries, within Poland and within Hungary, for now, still support being a member of the EU.
Well, I'm sure they do, because they get money from
Absolutely.
the EU, but they also very strongly support Orbán's party. I mean, we're seeing the rise of the far right in a lot of other countries, yes. Sweden, but in Italy, in France, and Sweden, it hovers around 17 to 20%. But Orbán's party, in the last elections, I think, got around 50%. So the people obviously support their leader. I guess it comes down to liberal democratic values, which the EU, or EC as it was back then, was founded on. I mean, ultimately, are we seeing an expanded European Union that just cannot accommodate both the liberal values of the original Western countries and the new countries that have come in that obviously just don't share them?
I think something that the EU has been very caught off guard is the process of liberal democracies, or even nascent democracies after the fall of the Soviet Union, becoming illiberal democracies. It's been very slow, very methodical processes we've seen in Hungary, dismantling all sorts of institutions and starting to make it really difficult for there to be any kind of opposition or any kind of press freedom or freedom for NGOs or anyone else who would be giving alternative information. So Orbán has created a position for himself that is incredibly robust, and I think it is likely we will continue to see him win in these elections. One thing that is very significant about the developments today is this has passed because his own peers within the EPP parliamentary group have turned against him. And for a very long time, they have protected and shielded him and decided that it was, on balance, better to keep him close, under scrutiny, keep a dialogue up. And this is a big change because they're saying, you know what, we are happy now to go out in public and say enough.